There are lots of ways to mobilise the shoulder joint, but here are my top 7. Starting with number 7, glenohumeral joint circumduction. This is the ball and socket joint of the shoulder, and we're getting it moving in all the directions that it can, with flat pads of fingers and thumbs above and underneath the joint, moving in slow circles. Number 6, and it's glenohumeral joint again. This time we're looking at extension. In this position, stood with the patient in side lying, we can cradle the arm, get it completely relaxed, and get the fingers into that ball and socket joint, working through the soft tissues of anterior deltoid and pec major at the same time. Practice this position, it's incredibly useful. Number 5, scapular protraction in side lying. We're using that same arm position, but this time we're trying to hook those fingers in underneath the medial border of the scapula and put the focus really on scapular protraction. Use rhythmic oscillation movements to try and get things moving. Aim for movement where there wasn't any before. Number 4, glenohumeral joint. This time we're looking at flexion. Did you know that the head of the humerus actually needs to glide inferiorly when the arm moves into flexion? This is a function of the supraspinatus, and if that muscle is dysfunctional, this might not be happening, so we can get that moving with some mobilizations. Passively moving the patient's arm into flexion, with the index finger of my left hand, you can see me just trying to push that head of the humerus inferiorly, so down in the position that we're looking at it. Number 3, and it's scapular upward rotation. Another very important function of the scapula that's often lacking due to tight downward rotators. Position is key here, so we need to make sure that we're at the head end with the arm supported so they can remain completely passive and relaxed. With the right hand, I'm trying to push that scapula into upward rotation to try and get movement where there wasn't any before. Always make sure to begin with an assessment and to end with a reassessment. Number 2 is scapular retraction in the prone position. So here we're placing the patient's arm behind her back, and then we can try and get the thumb into the medial border of the scapula to try and lift the scapula up off the rib cage. We've got the subscapularis muscle and serratus anterior in there that can get tight and restricted and can prohibit that movement of the scapula. So passively with the arm behind the back opens that scapula up to increase this kind of movement. Number 1, a firm favorite, tried and tested in my clinic, is the everything position. So we've still got the arm behind the back, but you can see I've placed my arm underneath her arm and my right hand to mark the medial and inferior border of the scapula, rounded to the lateral side. From here, we can push the shoulder up, bringing that scapula into retraction, and then we've got full passive movement of that into elevation, depression, retraction, protraction, upward and downward rotation. This really is the everything position for the scapula, and I recommend that you practice it and get good at it. The most challenging thing here is to make sure that the patient remains passive and relaxed.